versus a phone call, I'd have to get dressed. I'd have to clean up the house. When they came over, there was kind of 10 minutes of handshaking. How you doing? They get a glass of water. They go to the bathroom. It just seemed to take a lot longer. And I liked the in-person stuff, but I realized the phone stuff was kind of like, let's get straight to it. And then we're both back to our lives.
Hi, I'm James Taylor, business creativity and innovation keynote speaker. And this is The Creative Life, a show dedicated to you, the creative. If you're looking for motivation, inspiration, and advice while at home, at work, or on your daily commute, then this show is for you. Each episode brings you a successful creative, whether that's an author, musician, entrepreneur, performer, designer, or thought leader. They'll share with you their journey, their successes, their failures, their creative process, and much, much more. You'll find show notes for this episode, as well as free training on creativity, over at jamestaylor.me. Enjoy this episode. Hey there, it's James Taylor, and I'm delighted today to have on the show David Wood. After life as a consulting actuary to a Fortune 100 companies on Park Avenue, David Wood built the world's largest coaching business, becoming #1 on Google for life coaching and serving huge audiences worldwide. He now coaches high-performing leaders to play the best game they possibly can, deepening connection and living a regret-free life. How does he do this? Well, by setting life-changing goals, taking laser-focused action, and increasing their levels of truth, daring, and caring. It's my great pleasure to have David with us today. So welcome, David.
Thank you, James.
So share what's happening in your world just now. What's going on at the moment?
Wow. I'm in a lot of transition. So I left Bali a year and a half ago, and I've been wondering, where in the world do I want to live? Because I've been able to work from anywhere for 20 years and I can pick anywhere in the world. So I've been traveling for a year and a half. And finally, I've relocated to Boulder. I had to pick a lane, so Boulder's it. So I bought a car. I've signed a lease on a beautiful house in the mountains. I'm searching for a puppy. I've been saying for a while, I want a car, a house, a cat, a dog, and a partner. That's the dream. So that's a lot of what's happening. I'm enjoying podcast interviews like this one, and I'm launching my own, so I can feel like I belong to the club. And I'm connecting. I'm actively increasing my social connections, particularly after traveling for so long. I want more friendships. I want more limbic connection, and the puppy will help with that. But also there are some amazing people in Boulder doing that, doing some volunteer work, training in prisons right now. There's a lot happening, and I'm grateful for it.
So someone hearing that you've lived in Bali before, what made you decide to up sticks from somewhere like as beautiful as Bali? We have this image in our head of a place like Ubud in Bali and different parts of Bali where we think this is an incredible place to live. Why would you ever want to move from there? What was the reason for making this next chapter in your life?
Well, there's a shadow side to Bali. The people are really wonderful. If you start getting involved with the government and immigration, apparently the energy kind of shifts. And I got myself in trouble because I rented a villa that I lived in, and then I sublet part of the villa. And you can't do that. You're not allowed to do it. Now, you can't do that in any country because governments don't want you making any kind of money unless you have a visa to do that. But in Bali, they really care about it, and they've got teams of people tracking you down. So I knew that I shouldn't be doing it. The consequences were I got caught, and I was willing to pay a fine. I was willing to be deported, but I wasn't willing to negotiate a bribe from within jail. That wasn't a conversation I wanted to have. And my lawyer was saying it was some indefinite period of time I could be in jail for subletting my villa. And I spoke to another lawyer who I trusted more than my own, and she said, you should go right now, and in 3 months the whole thing will have blown over. So it wasn't like, let me find my next transition piece. And often this is the way it comes in life, right? You don't go, let me take a major transition. Sometimes it's forced on you. So 11 o'clock one morning, I was having a cup of tea, not a care in the world. 11 o'clock that night, I was on a plane, everything uprooted. Wow. And I'm actually now grateful. Isn't that the way it also happens? Sometimes looking back, you can be grateful but not at the time. Like, not when I'm going through the airport wondering if I'm flagged at immigration, and if my passport's flagged and I'm not going to be able to leave the country. That wasn't grateful, but now I feel grateful because it's, well, you talk about creativity,
Yeah.
right? That's what the
Yeah. I mean, that's
podcast is about.
as you're saying this, I'm thinking sometimes, like in Japanese poetry, for example, you're given these constrictions, these things you have to work within. And actually, sometimes you can be the most creative because you have to really use that part of your mind to open up to maybe
Yes.
things that you'd locked down before you hadn't previously considered. So
Yes.
you went to a step in terms of taking that step of saying, okay, I'm going to travel around the world for a while and just find out what I like. We had a guest on the show previously, Rolf Potts, who talks about the art of perpetual travel.
Oh, Vagabonding.
Wonderful book. So in your adventures of traveling around the world, what did you learn more about yourself rather than necessarily about the places in which you visited and during that? Because that can be quite a unsettling time, but it can be quite a creative experience.
Yeah, very unsettling. I went into anxiety. I had a little bit of depression. And I'm struck by, and I will get to your question, I'm struck by how one thing we can do as humans is we can generate situations which will produce creativity, right? We can put ourselves in situations consciously, but life will also throw you things that look like massive dramas that can also generate the same thing. So we can take advantage of it. I discovered that I really need a progressive community around me. I went to Medellin in Colombia, did 30 salsa lessons in 30 days, which is another way to produce creativity. And it's a beautiful place, and it's cheap, and the women are lovely, and I could have found myself a wife down there. But I didn't find those communities of people that practice a lot of yoga. They're really into great nutrition. They're practicing consciousness. They're trying to work out how their systems work and how to bust out of it. There was the occasional person, but not a lot of deep communities. So I learned that that's the number one thing I need in a location, and that's why I chose Boulder, Colorado.
Fantastic. And I know I've got a lot of friends in Colorado. It's one of those places where not so much in Boulder, but in places like Denver, for example, there's a lot of incredible speakers based in Denver as well. They seem to congregate together. Once you find your tribe, they seem to, more people kind of come in there because they like the experience of being in that community. So I mentioned you went from being an actuary, consulting actuary, to all these Fortune 100 companies doing the New York Park Avenue thing.
Yeah.
To building the world's largest coaching business. So I have to ask, how did that happen?
I'm still on your last question, and I'm seeing how it ties into this one. One thing I learned about myself in these, but back 20 years ago when I made the transition to coaching, I learned that I love finding my own systems and my own patterns and breaking out of them. I'm a systems geek, right? I'm an actuary. But then when I discovered personal growth, someone said to me, you're having trouble in your marriage. Your wife should really go and do this personal growth course. And when I found out more about the course, I said, I think I'd like to do that. I want to step outside my patterns. I get an image of a rat in a maze, right? Humans are rats in mazes, and that's not bad. We follow our patterns, but how do you break out is the theme of your podcast, I think. And I said, let me go and do this personal growth course. And it blew me away. It actually cracked my cynicism. I thought the people in self-help were idiots. They were weak. And I thought the people who were selling self-help were just trying to get my money. And I saw their heart, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. And I started coaching people. I couldn't stop myself. If someone was stuck in the course, I'm like, well, how could you share that with your husband? Is there a way that you could do it and get closer? And I got hooked. And I found one guy had a business card that said coach on it, and it blew my mind. This is back in 1997. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is a thing? You can get paid. I knew I could get trained as a coach. I went and did my training, but you can actually do this as a living. So that's how I made the transition. One day I just started carrying business cards, and then I met someone who seemed like they could use some coaching, and I said, let's try it out. And one thing I learned about myself in these last 18 months is because I retired from coaching, I learned that I'm generally happiest when I'm coaching or training, because that's when I'm inspired. I get glimpses of how life works and I get to share it with other people. And so I've come back to coaching after this retirement in Bali. And I tell you what, I'm happier. I was more comfortable in Bali, but I'm happier now.
But that's interesting, because I know that effect of coaching someone is not always like that. I know some people, they said when they have done any coaching in the past for other people, they've left feeling completely mentally exhausted from the process, and they spend their entire weeks just thinking about the client, what's the next thing for the client, and they're consumed by it, but it exhausts them as well. Where there's other people I speak to who on the coaching side who it's like an energizer for them. They love that, but they can also separate different parts of their life, so it doesn't completely consume it. That they have enough space in their own life to explore depths and not being completely consumed by the job.
Well, two things come to mind. One is if you're attached and thinking you have to be responsible for this person's life, and it's not going the way you want it to go, that could be painful and exhausting. But also, it comes down to who you're working with and what you're working with them on. I had one client who didn't seem to be moving forward. Every week there were the same issues, the same problems, and I kept on trying to coax him out of that pattern to see new possibility. And it seemed to me that he was in a victim mentality and he wasn't busting out. And finally I said to him, I don't think I have the skill to help you get out of this orbit. And so if you want to keep going with me, there's a course I know that could have you bust out of this orbit. And if you do the course, I'll keep coaching you. If you don't do the course, I need to stop because it's painful for me. And I don't think I'm serving you. And he ended up going and doing the course, and he busted out of that orbit. But I had to draw that line because I just realized I'm feeling drained every single week. I feel like we're not getting anywhere. But I've got other clients who it's a joy to be on the Zoom call with them. I come up with an idea and they're like, oh, and they go and apply that to something in their life. And then I'm like, yes. And then you can apply that to your work, and it works to your relationship, to your kid, and to your work. And we get meta about it. And I leave the call like saying that was the best thing.
So when we think about coaching as a business though, the different coaches I know and I've worked with over the years, some of them just have very much that individual is a face-to-face, not via Skype or Zoom or anything. Others do more of their more Zoom type online virtual coaching, or a blend of those things. Others do almost like group style coaching as well. So what have you found, because there's a lot of business models within the coaching practice, or what you can do within coaching, what have you found is the type of model that you've enjoyed using most?
When I started coaching, I thought it had to be face-to-face, and I had some local clients. I think partly because my marketing method was to speak, kind of like this. Right now I'm speaking, right? And people can hear me, and if they resonate, they can come and do a session with me. I was speaking locally, so I got local clients, and they'd come over, and I'd find that versus a phone call, because we didn't have video Skype back. I'm dating myself now. We didn't have video back then. Versus a phone call, I'd have to get dressed. I'd have to clean up the house. When they came over, there was kind of 10 minutes of handshaking. How are you doing? They get a glass of water. They go to the bathroom. It just seemed to take a lot longer. And I liked the in-person stuff, but I realized the phone stuff was kind of like, let's get straight to it. And then we're both back to our lives. And even the people who liked face-to-face, they'd be running a bit late one day. And they'd say, hey, can we do this by phone just to save some time? And I said, yes. And then when I started expanding to online marketing, which in a way this is, like now people could be anywhere listening to this podcast. It didn't make sense anymore. People, like my clients are spread around the world. So since since that first time, I guess in 1998, my first client, she was face-to-face. But then in 1999, I started going virtual, and I've never gone back. I've got a client coming up at the top of the hour after this call, and she's in Denver. So we'll probably get together for a lunch. I'll have a chat, but our coaching calls, we just do them on Zoom. It's so easy. Now, having said that, I found that I've gone virtual for 20 years, and there's a shadow side to that. I miss some face-to-face interaction, that limbic connection. So I'm creating that in other areas, and I'm going back to live stuff, not for the coaching, but for training. I've been saying for years, I've got to get to live groups. And now I'm doing it. And this prison work is an example of that. I get to be, in Tuesday, Wednesday, I was with 20 female inmates for 2 days, being with them, helping them live. And that's how I'm getting that face-to-face limbic connection.
But I think I love that hybrid style of working, you know, between the online and the offline. Obviously, a lot of new generation that are coming in to the world of work just now. They've come from being educated in a flipped classroom style, where some of the lessons that they receive are direct video, so that the time that they spend in the classroom together is where they're doing more interactive style of work.
Yeah.
There's more facilitation kind of going on. It's a very different style. Certainly when I was going back, thinking myself, when I was going back to school, the generation that are coming into the world of work now, they've come from that flipped classroom, and they're very comfortable with that hybrid model of offline, online, going back offline again. You know, we think about apps now. You know, we're using whether it's Uber or Deliveroo, or what it's that blend. You don't even almost think about it where it goes offline, but there is something still special about having that human to human connection that you get at a live workshop or some type of live event.
Yeah. And I just learned something from you saying that. I'm realizing that with the training, we want face-to-face interaction with multiple people. There's more you can do. You can do physical exercises. Like we tell them to create a game with each other. We had inmates going off in pairs and just making up a game, and they're balancing chairs on their heads. And the guys in the guy prison, they're doing push-ups and challenging each other. It's hard to do that online. But for coaching, for what we're going to do, I do 30-minute sessions. Like we just dive in fast, boom, 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 and then back to your life. That doesn't need, if I was doing therapy with you, I'd probably want to be in the same room as you, ideally. For coaching, I'm fine. I love Zoom. As long as I can see you. It's harder for me if it's just audio. I want to see you because there are cues I get. There's so much information that comes visually.
Now, you've had a lot of interesting experiences in your life. One of them was 10,000 feet above the Himalayas, hanging from a piece of cloth. Tell us, you know, what happened there, and how did it change your view on life and what was important?
I've got to answer it a different way. I think what I got from it, I think the reason I had that experience was because of my view on life. Now, I know, you know, as a motivational speaker, I really should have a story about, you know, it changed my life, some realization. And it's true, there are realizations that happen, but it's because I want to suck the juice out of life. It's because I want to die with zero regrets. I want to know I gave it all. That's why I jumped off a mountain. And I tell you, it's an incredible experience to step off a perfectly good mountain with a paraglider. This is solo, right? Paraglider strapped to you on my back, and to go up. That's an amazing experience. You step off a mountain, you start going up, and you keep going up for the next 45 minutes. And so you're already quite high. You're on a mountain in the Himalayas. And I went up, and it's been a lifetime goal of mine, bucket list goal, to hit 10,000 feet above sea level. And I got there, and one thing I noticed is it's scary as hell. And one of the reasons it was scary is because I didn't have anyone with me who'd been there and done it and could say, you're in the right spot. You're doing just right. Hey, come away from there. that's dangerous. You're too close to the back of the mountain. You might get blown over. I didn't have anyone doing that. I'm winging it by the seat of the pants, which I'm very capable of doing. And right now I'm imagining your listeners are incredibly capable, and they're probably, I'm going to project and imagine that you're the same, that you very independent, can be self-driven, can achieve incredible things on your own. But what would it have been like if I'd had someone with me, an instructor or an experienced pilot on radio saying, you're doing great. Why don't you try this? You're ready for this. Or that's too much. That's too dangerous. Don't do that. That's bad. In fact, while on that flight, I made a mistake. Actually, it might have been that flight or another one, perhaps the same day. I made a big mistake. I went over a mountain ridge and I was running out of height. I'm coming down over power lines and I had to make a choice. Go into the wind and hope I made it past the trees, risking a tree landing, or go back behind the mountain and land in the flat field, but maybe risk some turbulence, because when the wind goes behind the mountain, it does nasty things. And I said, there's not going to be much turbulence. Oh my God. I have never had my wing do a 90-degree turn that I did not initiate. 90-degree turn. If there'd been a tree right there, I would have smashed right into the tree. It scared the hell out of me. It threw me around like I'm in a washing machine, and I'm in Nepal with no one around, looking at crashing into a mountain. It was terrifying. So my learning out of that was, I can do amazing things on my own, but I don't have to. It can be safer and way more fun with someone else to do it with, particularly someone with a bit of experience that could guide me so I can fly higher and further and safer.
Yeah, having that, you know, in the Himalayas, like having that Sherpa type person that's with you, that's going on that journey with you. I mean, you mentioned that also that difference between your back. I know you do speaking as well as doing the coaching side, and there's that wonderful quote which is, sometimes we need to move from the sage on the stage to the guide on the side. And having that guide on the side, that person that's there, that's going along, you know, it's not behind you and it's not in front of you, but it's just alongside you, helping you on that journey is a very empowering thing. And
Wow.
maybe we'll take you a little bit further. So let's go to, you've been kind of going through the story of how you've built your career, going through all these different changes as well. You mentioned about the online piece. What tools do you use in the work that you do now as a coach, that like online tools or apps that you don't think you could possibly live without now, that really help you in building your business, doing the work that you do?
For a tech geek, I consider myself a tech geek. I'm so grateful to be alive at this time in history. I don't use a lot of technology with my clients yet. I have a simple process. I use a Google Doc with them that we can both edit, and I keep their goals, their challenges, their sabotage, all the key stuff that I want to know right up the top, and they have access to this. And then every single week, I have them post a self-coaching form, because I say to my clients, I don't want to replace what you do on your own. I don't want to create dependency on me. I want to build on what you can do on your own. So you coach yourself and send me the results, and then we'll use that as a starting point for our session. So I've got, I mean, some clients say it takes a while to load the page because there's like 60 plus pages of their life that comes up, and I scroll to the bottom and we dig into that. I do have a piece of technology I'm proud of. I was sitting doing some relating with a group of people once. We do these authentic relating games nights sometimes. And I realized I wanted to go home. I'm tired. I didn't like these people. I didn't see anyone I really wanted to connect with. And I was looking for a way out. And they had to sit down and complete one sentence stem. You had to say, what I don't want you to know about me is, and just finish it. And within about 4 minutes, I had tears in my eyes. I felt that like the guy opposite me was a brother. And I felt alert and energized, and there's no way I was leaving that room. And I thought, how can I generate that state change in my life? And I realized an app would help me, because simple, deep questions can change a connection instantly. And I thought, I'm a coach, but I don't want to, with someone at the coffee shop, I don't want to just say to them, hey, what advice would you give to yourself if you could travel back in time? It's just kind of weird to bring that up. But if I pull out my app, which is called Get Real, by the way, a game to go deeper. It's on iTunes and Android. You just scroll through until you find a question that you really want to ask. Say, hey, you want to play a game? And then you ask them the question, and then they scroll through and they find one that they really want to ask. And I tell you what, you go deep pretty fast with that. People use it with their family. I want to bring it into corporations. So that's not something that's something I rely on to go deeper in my life. I haven't used it with my clients. With clients, there's a permission already for me to dive in, right? This app is what gives me the permission outside those.
But it's great. I mean, I just think that idea of some words we call catalytic questions, asking those questions. There was a quote I saw at the weekend. I was speaking in Paris, and it was a quote from Voltaire, the writer, who said that judge a person by the quality of their questions, not their answers.
Yes.
And I thought that was a great quote, just thinking about asking better questions. You know, I think, I don't know if you find this, but sometimes when you develop and people then see you as an expert on whatever your topic is, you're expected to have all the answers all the time. And actually, you're almost getting forced into stopping asking as many questions because you're expected to know all the answers. And I'm actually finding myself more and more trying to get a little bit more hardcore on pushing myself to ask more catalytic questions, asking better questions, and forcing myself to do that rather than just always thinking about just trying to think of the answers. Actually really think about first principle questions.
I like how excited and lit up you seem just at that concept. And it reminds me of what you said about going from sage to guide. So you're going from the guru with the answers, and yeah, sure, I've got answers. But my favorite guru is Byron Kadi. And Kadi's best format of teaching is she won't tell you a thing. She will ask you 4 questions so that you can find your own answers.
Powerful questions, powerful questions. If you were to recommend one book and one album to our listeners, what would those be?
I think Loving What Is by Byron Kadi is a doorway to absolute peace and freedom. She says the worst thing that can happen to you is a thought. And I've come to believe that. And that's groundbreaking. It's mind-blowing. But the book itself didn't change my life. The book was an intro to Kadi, and then I really found Kadi, and then Kadi changed my life. So I will recommend Loving What Is. I also want to give a little plug for, now in this context of business creativity, I'm impressed with Stealing Fire. That's one of the recent books that I read, and I was just impressed with that. But one might come to me later. Come on, the E-Myth, man. I don't think it's a sexy book. The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It's not a sexy book, but if you haven't read it, it's not like it improved my business thinking. It gave me my business thinking. I didn't have business thinking until I read the book. And I'm a system.
Wonderful book.
As an album, I'm going to go with Bat Out of Hell by Meatloaf.
I haven't heard that in many years. I thought you were going to suddenly say, being in Medellin, being in Colombia, you go for some salsa all of a sudden. No, so
I couldn't tell you who's saying what. I don't track a lot of new music and albums. I got to really go back.
Great. So Bat Out of Hell, we're going to put all these links in the show notes here as well. So if anyone goes jamestaylor.me, just type in David Wood and you'll find all these show notes. A final question for you, David. Let's imagine you woke up tomorrow morning and you have to start from scratch. So you have all the tools, all the knowledge you've acquired over the years, but no one knows you. You know no one. You have to restart. What would you do? How would you restart things?
I would pick an area that I'm passionate about, and ideally that I know a lot about, but that's not required. If I don't know a lot about it, I would read the top 3 books on that area. Now I'm going to know more than 95% of the population on that area. And then I would reach out to experts in the area and build relationships with them. So podcasting is a great tool, as you know. You get to interview experts, and now you're generating content from people with names, and then ideally they share that content with their list, and you can start building an email list from that. And then as you develop your chops, now you're an expert just by virtue of the fact that you've interviewed 10 experts, right? People say, oh, I went and researched this stuff and I asked the top 100 people about this. Now you're an expert. And then, I mean, I'm biased towards coaching. I love helping people achieve their goals. So I would do that to build a reputation, build my chops, and then offer coaching to people who want to work with me more in depth.
So on that note, where is the best place for people to connect with you to learn more about your coaching and the other things that you've got going on just now?
Thanks for asking. The best way, if we've said something that resonates with you, go to playforreal.life and request a session with me. I can't say yes to everybody, but I can say yes to a lot of people. If you qualify, I won't charge you for the session. I do it, one, because I love it, but two, it's how I find the right people to work with long-term. So playforreal.life. There's also a great assessment that I'm really proud of as part of the requesting process. So you'll get some insights about your life. And then if you actually book a call with me, we'll go into those insights and create a plan for your life and business. And if you want to go away and implement the plan on your own, I hope you'll let me know how it goes. And if you want help implementing it, we can talk about coaching.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to put all these show notes here. David, thank you so much for coming on today, sharing all about your creative life. I wish you all the best in your next chapter of your life in Boulder, Colorado, and I look forward to maybe sharing a stage together at some point in the future.
Yes, I'm inspired by that idea. Thanks, James.
If you're interested in living a more creative life, then I'd love to invite you to join me as I share some of the most successful strategies and techniques that high-performing creatives use. I put them all together in a free downloadable ebook that you can get by going to jamestaylor.me. That's jamestaylor.me to get your free downloadable ebook on creativity.